Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Clouds and very nice to meet you. Someone recently sent me this article called The 11 Most Prestigious Consulting Firms in the World in 2022, and I thought it'd be really interesting to review this list and react to this list on camera, and we can also just, see what we think about what they listed as the 11 most prestigious companies in consulting. So let's see. This article is by Hacking the Case Interview, and I don't actually know this website, but given by the name, it's probably a website that helps students get into consulting companies and go through case interviews, etc. Just caveating that I do not know this website, so I don't know how reliable they are, but given that they are someone that give advice in getting into case interviews, it seems that they understand the consulting industry to a certain extent. And it does say here that to do this list, they analyzed over 75 different consulting firms that were ranked by The Vault and also by consulting.com, and those two sources I do know. It also says here that they have excluded consulting firms that are not management consulting firms and that do not have global presence, and also do not serve a wide range of industries and functions, which means that any boutique consultancy that only does one specific industry, they excluded from this list, and also anything that is a regional office or any consultancy that only operates in one specific country, and also companies that are not management consulting firms. So anything that's like a data consultancy or a tech consultancy. So let's scroll down and see. Okay, so tier number 1, we have the MBBs, McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. This does not come as a surprise. If you are new to consulting, MBB is essentially the top tier, S tier of consulting firms, and it's definitely seen as the most prestigious companies to join, and definitely I'd say the most competitive companies to join as well. They offer really great salary, they offer good brands, great exit opportunities. They are also known for having grueling hours, but I think that's just overall strategy consultancy as an industry. McKinsey, BCG, and Bain are definitely, I would say, the most prestigious consulting companies, so I would agree with that. It's also because they are pure strategy houses, so they don't do any like tech implementation, or at least it's not their main focus, whilst other really large and well-known consulting firms like the Big Four, they do all kinds of other stuff. They do implementation, they do change management, they also do all of their other business functions like auditing, accounting, tax, risk assurance, etc. So MBB is typically seen as like the pure strategy houses because that is their sole focus. And I would say that they typically recruit from a selected list of universities, and especially in the US, MBBs and other consulting firms have a target list of schools that they go for, and if you're not from a target school, it can oftentimes be quite difficult to get into these companies, which isn't particularly fair. Okay, so now we're going into the details. McKinsey, the oldest and largest firm out of the MBB, McKinsey is known as the gold standard. It's essentially the Goldman Sachs of consulting, and Goldman Sachs is the McKinsey of investment banking. McKinsey hires the smartest and most talented people and has generated the greatest number of Fortune 500 CEOs. They are known as a CEO factory. BCG also, very fun fact, did you know BCG alumni includes John Legend? He's won like every single award. I swear he's won like an Emmy, an Oscar, a Grammy. Like there's something that they call those people, and he's one of them. Basically captured all of the awards like Pokemon cards, and he's also a BCG alum, smart, career-driven, and talented. And then we have Bain, the smallest but the newest in the MBB, still extremely up there in terms of consulting rankings. Tier 2, we have the well-known management consulting firms. So the first one is Deloitte Strategy and Operations. The Big Four have their own strategy houses and their own strategy parts, and Deloitte Strategy and Operations, which I also think is called Deloitte Monitor or Monitor Deloitte in some areas, is their strategy part or their strategy arm in terms of consulting. There are other parts of consultancy that are part of Deloitte but are not the same as the strategy. Then we have Oliver Weinman, which is again very well-known company and also extremely hard to get into. I feel like when I was applying, I barely heard anyone go through interviews of Oliver Wyman. Essentially, like, 90% of my friends who went to business school with me are in consulting, and not a single one of them is in Oliver Wyman. So that's interesting. Either they don't recruit from our school, or they're just extremely selective. Then we have Strategy End, which is also part of PwC, which, as I mentioned before, each Big Four has their own strategy consulting group. And for Deloitte, it's Deloitte Strategy Operations, or Monitor Deloitte. And for PwC, it's Strategy End. Next, we have EY Parthenon, which again is the strategy arm of EY. And then we have Accenture Strategy. So again, Accenture has a bunch of different consulting lines, different service lines and business groups, and Accenture Strategy is specifically the one that's on this list. Okay, Kearney. Kearney, funnily enough, for some arbitrary reason, I don't remember why, but Kearney was the one company I really wanted to get an interview from when I was applying to consulting firms. I feel like I had this perception that Kearney was very cool. I didn't get in. So yeah, I do not work for Kearney, but Kearney is one of those companies that, in my head at least, was very prestigious for some reason. I'm not sure why. Roland Berger, which is known for being a German firm but also extremely successful. And then we have Ellie K Consulting, which is the last one on this list. Ellie K is also pretty big, I would say. I did have a friend who worked at Ellie K. She's not there anymore, and their salary is pretty good. I think compared to Big Four, Ellie K's salary is a lot better. So yeah, I feel like I would agree with this tier 2 so far. Let's see who they have in their tier 3. So okay, it's not even called tier 3, it's called the rest. Lesser known management consulting firms. So basically whatever's on the side, that's how they kind of framed it. But let's see who's in here. I do know a couple of other companies that I know are really great consulting firms. I know FTI Consulting is quite big. There's other companies like Capgemini, which is popular. IBM, but I wouldn't really say IBM is a consulting company. There's also a boutique called Solon, Teneo, but let's see who they have in this list. So this tier includes consulting firms that focus on management consulting but do not have global name or brand recognition like tier 2 management consulting firms. So Arthur D. Little, I applied to Arthur D. Little actually, apparently the oldest management consulting firm in the world. That's actually quite interesting. Then we have Simon Kutcher and Partners, which I have also heard about, but I don't know too much about. Oh, OC&C I would expect to be more up the list, but I do know that they're quite small, and I think it was to my understanding that they got acquired by EY Parthenon, except for their London practice. I might be wrong, do not quote me on that. They pay really well. That's all I know about OC&C, is that they pay like better than MBBs. Okay, so this list only has 3 of them: Arthur D. Little, Simon Kutcher, and OC&C. And then they have consulting firms considered but excluded from the rankings. Altran, I've never actually heard of that company, but it's an engineering consulting firm. Alex Partners, I do know this company, focused on company turnarounds, litigation consulting, and forensic accounting services. Sounds riveting. We have Alvarez and Marsal, which I also have heard about. Analysis Group, which is an economic consulting firm. AON Hewitt, a focus on human capital consulting. Bates White, BDO Consulting. Berkeley Research Group. Booz Allen Hamilton, which I thought was bought out by Strategy End or something. Brussels Group, Bridgespan, Cambridge Group, Capgemini, which I mentioned earlier. Senseo Consulting, which I've never heard of actually, focus on government work. I don't know much about public sector. CGI Group, Charles River Associates, Cisco Systems Consulting, Clearview Healthcare, Cognizant Technology Solutions, Cornerstone Research, FTI Consulting, which I've mentioned. I do think it's quite well known. Gallup Consulting, Gartner, Grant Thornton, Hitachi Consulting. I know Hitachi, it's the energy power grid company. I didn't know they have a consulting part. Maybe it's a different company. HP Enterprise and Technology Services, which I'm assuming is just related to HP. Huron Consulting Group, never heard of. IBM Global Services, I do know of IBM. Infosys Consulting. I feel, oh, okay, so Infosys is not really a consulting, management consulting company. I feel like they provide technology infrastructure, and I have heard of them before. Insight Sourcing Group, Jabian Consulting, Mercer, which I've heard of. Mercer does a lot of human resources stuff, and I feel like are they associated with Oliver Wyman? Nera, which I've not heard of. Novantas, Oracle Consulting, Proficient, Point B, Providi, Putnam Associates, SAP Services Consulting, Sapient Corporation, Slalom Consulting, Stroud Consulting, Tata Consultancy, the advisory board company, ZS Associates. Okay, there's a lot of these. There's a lot of companies that were considered but excluded from these rankings, but these are all companies that seem to be quite specific or boutique in specific industries, either DATs or they are quite regional. Very, very interesting to see this list. And I would actually, even though I've never heard of this company before or this website before, I would say that I mostly agree with this list. I think within each tier, the companies make sense. Whether or not I would agree with how they're listed, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's sorted in a specific order. If it is, I don't know. I mean, MBB was sorted in the McKinsey, BCG, Bain order, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I would agree with the sorts, but that's very, very subjective and everyone has their own idea of what is more prestigious than what's. But I would agree with the overall categorization of the tiers, and it seems like it aligns, I guess, with what I expect and what I know of the industry. I'll say from tier 1 and pretty much tier 2, I have a friend in every single one of these companies apart from Oliver Weinman. So yeah, someone who I'd say has a pretty comfortable knowledge of the industry. I would say this list looks about right, at least for now. We never know how the industry is going to change, but yeah. Let me know what you guys think of this list, and if you guys disagree or agree with some of these positionings and rankings or tiers. But there's a lot more lists, but this video is getting a bit long, so I guess I'll do a reaction to those lists in other future videos. If you guys want that, let me know in the comments below. Yeah, hopefully this give you guys a little bit more insight into the consulting industry and I guess the prestige and brand recognition that each company has. If you guys do have any questions, then mention them in the comments below and I'll try my best to reply, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.